I hope that you are well. I hope you had safe travels to the Vic. And fortunately, we did not come back with 3 points from this game. So there are a few really clear reasons why. First of all, Watford, in terms of their defensive stability, are anything but. This is the problem and the concern that I have registered throughout this early part of the season and prior to the start of the season and prior to or right, really just after the close of the transfer window on August the 31st, is that this team is not strong enough defensively and that Gino and the board did not do enough to strengthen the defense at that transfer window during that summer transfer window. Not enough was done. Whatever the plan was, whether it was to strengthen that midfield and bolster the front line with pace, they obviously tried to do that, and they were very good at filling up the midfield with lots of people. But so far, the midfield has not been sharp enough to create. And what we saw today was very clear. There was not enough creativity in the midfield area. But more significantly for me, what was glaring was the defense. And what has been glaring throughout these first 4 games was and is the defense. Now, granted, against Tottenham Hotspur a couple of weeks ago, the defending was very good. It was the goalkeeping error that undid Watford there in that game against Spurs. We know that well. But today, what you saw in this game, apart from Jeremy and Ngakia, who seemed to be the only one in that defensive line who had any idea about what was going on, and I think really defended very well individually in that game, no one else had any clue defensively. No clue whatsoever. And Francisco Sierralta had an absolute nightmare. He had a mare of a game today. Sierralta just did not have his positioning right, didn't have a clue what was going on around him, didn't really pick out the proper men to mark, lost his marker, went to ground. I mean, there was no reason for that. And I'll talk about that in a moment. The Wolves' goals, and Wolves, by the way, didn't have a real sniff in this game in the first half. Had 1 or 2 chances where they should have scored. Some great goalkeeping from Daniel Backman, who redeemed himself after the horrible error he made in the game against Spurs. In that first half, Watford looked electric after a slow start. Wolves had the majority of the possession, which is what you'd expect. Wolves fashioned a few chances, but nothing really to write home about. There were some great saves late in that first half from Backman. But aside from that, Wolves really did not trouble Daniel Backman throughout that first half. It was Watford who, after the 20 minutes or so that started the game, were the more likely team to score after that 20-minute mark. They had some opportunities in that first half. In the second half of that first half, they should have converted. Josh King missing a ball that was scuffed, quite frankly, as a shot from Saar across the goal. And Josh King just couldn't get his legs to it, couldn't get his foot to it to poke it home. And that was really the shape of things to come as Watford had some glorious opportunities. Sissoko had a good chance as well that first half. Nothing got converted, 0-0 at halftime. And then the tempo of the game completely changed second half. There was no intensity by Watford at all going forward in that second half. Defensive intensity completely off in that second half. It was 2 different halves again. And Watford as a team collectively didn't have any bite in that second half of the game, particularly in the 73rd minute or so when that goal came in. It was Wolves' first goal of the season. It wasn't even scored by them. It was off a set piece where we've had so much trouble historically over these last few seasons with set piece defending. We have just not been good, except for against Spurs, where again it was a goalkeeping error. We as a team have not been good defending set pieces. I mean, this has been a problem for so long now. And it came back to bite us again. A short corner kick by Wolves, crossed in, and Sierralta, who I don't know what he was doing, his defensive positioning was really off today, as I said earlier. He is all alone in the box. And if you look at the replays, there are at least 2 or 3 Wolves players behind him, unmarked. And he heads the ball into the back of the net. I don't know if he's stooping to head the ball to Backman and he thinks Backman's going to read that, but the point is just bad communication defensively all around. And Sierralta, why he just didn't put that ball behind for a corner, why he felt he had to stoop to head the ball. I mean, if you're stooping in your box as a defender with your back to the Wolves players to head a ball, you had better be sure you're heading it back to the goalkeeper. But your defensive positioning there is all wrong, and you're heading the ball into the back of your own net. Instead of trying to get yourself in a position defensively where you're heading the ball away for a corner or you're heading the ball, wherever, anywhere but back to your own goalkeeper in that position, you better be sure that Backman's there for you to head it to him. And of course, Backman's looking at what's going on around him. But that was a huge mistake from Francisco Sierralta. The defense has made so many mistakes here these first 4 weeks. We saw Truster Kong for the second Brighton goal a few weeks ago, just lollygagging it. That was a defensive mistake there. We saw the defensive mistake that Adam Messina made in the goal scored, in that second Villa goal scored. Needless foul in the penalty box. No need for that. Led to the penalty kick, of course. It was a penalty scored there, made it 3-2. Watford held on to win. But I think now that goal and that goal today against Watford, that own goal has really typified our defensive intensity. It's been very poor marking, very poor spacing, very poor awareness of what's going on in your box. You can't leave three defenders unmarked, and that really is a team defensive problem. And I think team defensively wise, we have not been good, except for the game against Spurs, which I could argue is the best performance that Watford had, despite the fact they lost that game. Team defensively wise, we are not on it. Ngakia individually was very good today, I think, defensively. But team defense, in terms of defending as a team together, we are at sixes and sevens. That's my greatest concern. It has been my concern from the preseason in terms of the acquisitions. We did not get any new defenders. Matty Pollock was shipped out on loan for the season. We've not got any real defenders now who are going to be doing the job. Kabasele did not start this game. You saw Cathcart did not start this game in central defense. I get it. Look, the partnership of Truster Kong and Sierralta in the Spurs game was very good, but today, not so much. And overall, our defensive identity is not there. It's just not. And forward thinking, well, after that first half, we didn't have anything to say in the second half. Going forward, no cohesion. Again, no confidence. That was my fault with the Spurs game. Despite a very good performance, we didn't have enough going forward. We didn't have enough devil in us going forward. Sarr, for all his endeavor and his hard work and his really good running, did not have that final end product, did not have a really good cross into the box. There was no imagination from the forward play. There was no creativity. The midfield didn't create anything either. Sissoko, I guess it's too early for me to make an assessment. Now, I did have Twitter Spaces after this game, and there was a point made about the creativity. And I agree, we just did not have anything defensively creative to hang a hat on, to put our hats on, and that's a problem. No, Cleverly didn't show up in this game. He was named to the bench, was not brought in. And then you have to start looking at the manager again. After all of this, you got to look at the manager. Josh King, we don't have any established goal scorer. Fletcher didn't play this game. Why not? Why didn't you put Fletcher in? A big body up front. He can score goals. Why not put him in the game? Josh King has not been enough so far for Watford in that number 9 position. He's done plenty of running. I think he's had moments of being very lively in some of these games, but today he wasn't on it. 53rd or 54th minute, he subbed 52nd, 53rd minute, subbed out of the game. And I don't know. I thought the lineup actually was good today. But the point is that we've got to start making some changes here in terms of everything. Going forward, I think you've got to now start Cucho going forward on that left side. You've got to have Dennis, or you've got to have Fletcher in that role coming in. You can have Fletcher coming in in that middle position, and you could have Dennis playing a 10 role. I don't know if that's really his position. I know Dennis is really primarily a left or right player, and he can go up the middle. He can be a number 10. He can be a facilitator. Why not? And then that does come down to the managers. I was just saying, I did say before the start of the season, you can go look back on some of these videos, that Cisco is going to have, we're going to have moments where we're going to be looking at a 3, 4, maybe even 5 game losing streak. But that has come at the start of the season. And that is going to worry all of us as Watford fans. No matter what we know, no matter what we've seen, I've maintained that you have to wait till we get to 8, 9, and 10 games of this Premier League season to really make a really educated assessment. But heck, I think it's very clear after 4 games, don't you, about where we are and what the issues are. The issues are the defense, and the issues are no real endeavor going forward, not a recognized number 9 that can stick the ball in the back of the net. Dennis has had his moments, he's scored, but look, Dennis had struggled for goals in parts of times when he was, before he got to Watford, which people aren't really talking about as much. Josh King has struggled for goals before he got to Watford, despite having a very good time at Bournemouth. He struggled at Everton. He struggled to get playing time there. He struggled to get goals. And you saw it again today. Sarr is someone who he's got it all together. I just want to see a bit more from Sarr. I mean, it's a little harsh to say that, but I want to see better end product. I want to see better decision making. Cucho, a bit off the ball today for me. But I still think he should be starting these games. But again, we're very thin. Sema coming off the bench didn't give you very much today. Again, the defense, though, for me, is the biggest problem. And I think somehow Gino and the board have said, we're going to ride with what we've got, and we're going to see if we can outscore teams. We're going to outrun teams. We're going to outflank teams. We're going to outwork teams. And we've got enough goal scorers who can do it. Well, so far, it hasn't worked. If that was the plan, it has not worked thus far. It's that defense for me that's the problem. And I think the calculation, and I don't know, this is my guess, is the board made a calculation and Gina made a calculation that we're going to see what we can do with what we've got defensively. And then January, we'll make changes. Well, by January, it could be too late, but I'm not going to panic there yet. I am still very confident about Watford doing a lot better in this season. I'm not going to change my course about where I predicted they'd finish. I know after 4 games, that is looking quite silly at this minute, but I think that Watford do have to make changes in that lineup now. And again, the lineup today was good. My criticism of Cisco, again, as I did in a game against Brighton, he did not react well enough to seeing what was going on in this game. He didn't react well enough. And yeah, he took off Josh King, but, I don't know. And I think Cisco now, again, Cisco is going to have to look over his shoulder here now, because this next game against Norwich, if Watford do not come away with 3 points, I think there's a very strong possibility that Gino will replace him. Gino is ruthless as an owner. We've seen it. We know it. He's let go of managers that got us promoted. He's let go of managers who've been very good for us. But Gino is ruthless. And I know that already, I've just been looking on social media as at the time I recorded this, there are Watford fans calling for Cisco's head, calling for his head. Now, you may agree with that. You may disagree with that. But I'm telling you, the natives are getting restless. And if the natives are getting restless, if you and I, some of us at least, as Watford fans, are getting restless, Gino, I can assure you, is getting restless too. And I think there will be some phone calls made in the next few days. Get ready just in case. Because Gino's not afraid to make that move. And we've seen it. Cisco could be managing for his job next week at Norwich. Put it that way. That is honestly what I think could be in the offing here if Watford don't get these 3 points against Norwich next week.